Hello, my fellow Extraordinary Americans. I'm Cosmos Dar, and this is Extraordinary America. What is Extraordinary America about? You see, American identity is about freedom, the opportunity for a better life, and the pursuit of happiness. Welcome to Extraordinary America. For today's guest, we have Michelle Taylor. Michelle is a financial advisor with Gambin Financial Group, where the focus is on client experience and building individual holistic plans that will enable clients to be empowered. Michelle is also the founder of the Women and Wealth Initiative, a transformative platform aimed at empowering women to take control of their financial futures. With over a decade of experience in financial services, Michelle is committed to closing the wealth gap by providing financial education and a supportive community for women from all walks of life. From business owners preparing for exit strategies to stay-at-home moms managing household budgets, Michelle's initiative helps women define and achieve their version of financial success with confidence and clarity. She's an extraordinary American, and I'm glad to have her on the show. Michelle, are you there?
I'm here. Yes. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to do this podcast with us, Michelle. Michelle, so I know you're into financial advising. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got into this field?
Wow. Well, it definitely wasn't on a straight line, that's for sure. So I grew up in an environment where I had a lot of exposure to entrepreneurs, and that always intrigued me. I went to college, though, for something very different. I started out in elementary education, pivoted, realized it wasn't for me, actually then considered becoming an orthodontist. Again, I definitely was not meant to sit and look at people's mouths all day. And in that journey, realized what I was really searching for was the autonomy that I believed that that profession would give me. So I quickly decided that I was going to start my own business. My best friend, Janine, and I moved to Italy, and we lived there for a year, hoping to import goods back to the United States and have a retail brick and mortar. Unfortunately, that was during 2007 and 8. So it wasn't the best time to be importing goods into America because of the weakness of the dollar and the recession we were going through. So I again pivoted and developed a product that would protect designer shoes. And that one was basically on the precipice of being held exclusively at Neiman Marcus. I had, unfortunately, some struggles with my husband and I starting our family. So it became a question of, do I focus on the business or pursuing IVF to have my family, which is what I chose to do. So I don't regret it though, because it gave me a ton of experience and hands-on examples of how to start a business and then how to guide others to do so. So with all of this, I again realized what I am searching for is a career that I can have an impact. I can change the way people think and feel about money, but I also want to be present in my own life with my family. And so my one of my best friends was our financial advisor, and he said, "Why don't you come do what I do? You have two business degrees, and the rest you can learn." So that's what I did. And we're here today. I've been with his practice now for 10 plus years, and yeah, everything is just getting better and better each year.
Wow. So Michelle, there's a lot of questions to ask from here, but one of the questions I wanted to ask is like, I know you believe in like closing the wealth gap, right, between the 1% and the 99%. So and financial education is a key component to that. So from your perspective, how do we go about closing the wealth gap, and what financial education do people need in order to start doing their own businesses and all of that?
The first thing I think that is critical is that we start talking about money. Somewhere along the way, it's become a taboo topic. And I think that it just does a disservice, especially to women, because we're even less likely to discuss money and finances with our friends. So I think understanding money, realizing where your shortcomings are, things that you don't really understand, finding mentors, and then just raising your hand and asking the questions, I think are critical to closing that wage gap. I think that knowledge is power. And certainly right now, we are in an environment and a time where with, Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, there's so many resources out there for us. And I think that it's important for people to go down that rabbit hole, learn what they can, but then take those tidbits and then build out your own board of advisors and make sure that the things that you're learning about actually are beneficial to implement in your life.
So Michelle, like let's say somebody wants to like let's say they're doing a 9 to 5 job and they want to be like you, they want to try their hand in entrepreneurship, but they don't really know where to go about doing so. How would they go about starting their own business with all the risks regarding money and all of that and the limiting beliefs that come when you're part of the 9 to 5 this thing?
Yeah, that's a great question because limiting mindset is something you said, limiting beliefs. And I
Yeah.
think that's the first place you start. It is scary. I remember leaving my six-figure job, going into financial services where I was the primary breadwinner and had a family to support. And it was petrifying. And I think that that's normal. So I think that it's important to understand that anything that worth doing is going to be a little scary. So, first thing is just find people that can help with that limiting belief that you're dealing with, I'd say is number one. Additionally, I think that you've got to find something, a business that you could envision doing for the next several years and what that will look like. Something I've talked about on my podcast is I'm not a big fan of telling people to find what they're passionate about and pursue that because just because you enjoy your work doesn't mean it's going to lead to a life that you enjoy. What I
Mhm.
mean by that is if you don't want to travel, but you pick a job that will require travel, you're going to have a job that you love, but a life that you don't like. So it's really important to, in my opinion, build out what life should look like for you first, and then find different careers that fit that model. So if you want to be an entrepreneur because of the autonomy and being your own boss, I applaud that. I would say right now we have such an opportunity with the baby boomer generation retiring. There are more businesses than you can imagine where the founders have nobody to sell the business to or leave it to. So they're just closing up shop. So for somebody that's in 9 to 5 and really wants to get into the entrepreneurial space, I would encourage them to start looking through different business sites that list local businesses for sale and then see which one of those piques your interest. And then find the right team of people to help you make that transition. Additionally, I think that setting yourself up with enough cash so that you can basically feel assured that while you're growing this business, you have enough that you can survive without it being profitable in year one is really important.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of people yeah, they're either too cautious or they go all in, and then there's like all of these factors to that come into play, like financial management and all of that, and also like how to manage your employees and everything, and then it gets a bit daunting. But my question to you, Michelle, would be like during your time like financially advising clients, like what is the biggest revelation or lesson that you had while advising the people, and like what did you learn?
So, one of the biggest issues that I see so many Americans encountering is having too much cash and not putting it to work for you. So, especially women, again, we tend to be a little bit more risk adverse. So, in many situations, we're holding on to too much cash, and cash is actually the most expensive place to hold money because of inflation. So, I would say that that tends to be the biggest pitfall because if you really want to grow wealth and be an architect of this beautiful life that you want to build, you need to have income streams working for you. And cash is never going to be the answer to that equation.
Mhm. So, I know you mentioned like is like for women like they have to do things they're risk adverse. So my question to you is I know like when there comes a time in a woman's life where they have to choose between family and career, and then it can then their vision has to take a certain point, and and then that leads to them being risk adverse regarding money. So from your perspective, how should a woman that wants to start a business going about managing those two priorities?
So it is very common that women have to choose between having a family or a business, but there are different scenarios and choosing the right business that would allow you to accomplish both. Again, it goes back to finding the right people to lean on, to mentor you, to give you the confidence to go out and bet on yourself. So for women in general, I mean, the best thing that they can do is just prepare financially and then find a business that won't require them to be absent from the home as much as some others will. I think, again, it takes a lot of research and a lot of partnership and relationships, but it is doable and very feasible. Um, for example, like a franchise model, a lot of women like the franchise model because they are able to walk into a business that is already established. It's just now they're running it. So it's not as much of a financial risk some of the time, but there's always an answer so that women don't have to choose between being a mom and a wife or being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I know. I know. Like, it's a decision that a lot of women, like that I know, like that I've talked to, like female entrepreneurs, like they had to face, like where on one hand they want to start a family, like when you have kids, it's a big time investment and it takes up a lot of time, and then they also want to go after their visions and their dreams, and then that creates quite a quandary.
Yeah.
So. From your own life, Michelle, like what is it like? How did you go about managing like a family life and also going about doing your business ventures? And how did you do the time management? Like, so if like any women are watching this, like, so they can learn how to do so.
It is really hard. But I think that time is that one commodity that we all value so much. So I would say the most important thing is having a supportive spouse, especially if you're a mom. That does make a big difference. My husband, we have kind of a reversal of traditional roles. He cooks dinner every night, allowing me to go out and do some of the things that I need to do that are after work hours. He helps pick up the kids, take them to baseball games, things like that. So I think that having a support system, whether it's a spouse or a friend, a sister, a brother, that's going to be important because it will give you the feeling of at least having a parachute of somebody that can help if you're in a pinch. Secondly, I really think that managing your calendar and your time are critical. Figuring out when you're most energized. Some people love to get up really early in the morning and have a couple of hours to themselves and get in some work then before the house wakes up. Other people, it's the total opposite where they want to do the same, but once everyone goes to bed. So I think figuring out when you're the most productive and then building out your calendar and making time blocks that you hold sacred is the easiest way to stay true to that work-life balance, if you will. Now, of course, it's not going to be perfect every time, but it's still going to be helpful when you make a commitment to yourself on your calendar and keep those things sacred. It's easier to say no to things that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, Michelle, I think one thing I noticed about you is that you're very disciplined with time because like you have achieved success, and I think time management is definitely like a critical factor when it comes to like business success. But Michelle, continuing on this question, from your perspective, what are the limiting beliefs that women have when it comes to attaining when doing entrepreneurship and being successful in business, and how do you think they should go about overcoming that?
I really do think it goes back to finding somebody that you can relate to that's already done it. So, especially for women, it's a little bit trickier when we don't have the same examples in, I guess, in abundance that men do. But find somebody who you think is successful. They don't even have to be in the same industry you're in, but I think that having a mentor that you can ask questions of, that you can get good feedback from. When you attain success, it doesn't matter what career you're in, there are some basic principles that will translate over any career path. So I think that the only way to get over your limiting beliefs is to find somebody who has forged the path ahead of you and then having a good support system in place And obviously there's, I know we all come with baggage in relations to money of how we were raised. And that's just something that you've got to talk through and figure out why your relationship is the way it is with money. But ultimately, I think being encouraged by another strong person, be it male or female, is the easiest way to kind of push through your limiting beliefs.
So Michelle, I know earlier we talked about how money is taboo to a lot of people. Like there's like a lot of people have negative feelings, positive feelings. So from your perspective, why is it such a hard subject to talk about when it is so important to in life and to your financial freedom?
I don't know. And I hope that with conversations like this and the good work that we can all do, that will change. Because think of it this way. Let's say that you and I are friends and we're sitting down at a happy hour with a few other colleagues, and somebody's up for a job interview and they're saying, I don't know how much I should ask for, what's normal. How much more helpful would it be if you had a friend in the audience, in your small audience, to say, hey, I'm making X amount of dollars doing this, and I can tell you that what I know, you should ask for this. I think that we just have to talk about the conversations involving money consistently and just disregard the taboo that comes with it. I think that men are really good at, I always say, like having conversations at the golf course or over cigars and bourbons. It's just like a commonplace conversation. But when you start talking to women about alternative investments and like syndications, and there's just so much out there that women are qualified to invest in, but they're not having the conversations with the people in their lives or surrounding themselves with the right people in the right rooms to even know what their options are. The only way we're going to fix that is by changing it within our own circles and encouraging and empowering the people in our circles to go out and do the same with other relationships that they have.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading this book a long time ago, like The Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, and it just opened my mind up to like how on a subconscious level we have all these beliefs about money, and it just and a lot of it from childhood, and then we don't
Yeah.
even know about it. Like we're just going on an auto like an automated robot, and we're just going through our lives, and we don't even know why we feel or think the way we do. And it's just like a fascinating topic because like a lot of like our beliefs are so embedded that we're not even aware of it anymore.
I know. And that is the hard work, right? I mean, getting into the entrepreneurial space, that I feel like is almost easier than overcoming some of the limiting beliefs that we have from childhood. I grew up where my dad was an entrepreneur. He was not the most disciplined with money, and it took him a long time to achieve a level of success. So I saw what he did, and I felt like he had so much fun and could do whatever he wanted. But then I saw my mom, who went back to work once my parents got divorced, and she's sitting every Sunday balancing a checkbook at the dining room table and sacrificing to make sure that I could go to dance classes. So it's like, how do we take the examples that are given to us and pull the important things from them to forge our own path forward and try and not let those things limit us? My mom did not enjoy her work. But what she did teach me is that I should go after the life that I want and never look for somebody else to provide it to me. I think that's very important. And I think that she had the discipline around money to ensure that no matter what, our needs were taken care of. My dad, on the other hand, showed me what entrepreneurship could provide. And he almost showed me, paying attention to the small details are going to take your business from one level to the next and differentiate you from your competitors. So I try and take those two things because both of them as a whole, I really didn't have any kind of financial guidance or education from my parents. And they probably had a lot of valuable things that they could add to what my beliefs were. But it was more of just an observation.
Yeah, I mean, how a lot of times like what we learn in childhood, it just gets embedded for a long period of time, and then when we get into our 20s or when we're starting into the business venture, that's when we have half the battle is ultimately about our mindset and thoughts and actions. And I would want the audience to know that because the other obviously you have the tactics of business and all of that, but it's a combination of like the internal world and the external world.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so important. And I think, I don't know if you're a parent, but that's something that I always think about now with two young kids is giving the disciplines now. What they do with their lives doesn't matter, but basic financial understanding and acumen, I think as parents, we all need to do a little bit better just to give the basics to our kids so that they aren't doing the same things that we are because of a lack of opportunity or understanding.
Yeah. So Michelle, like on a national level, right? You know, like there's like a huge wealth gap in America right now, and no matter how hard we try to close it, there's a disappearing middle class, and inflation is also a part it has a lot to do with it. So from your perspective, what can we do as a nation to basically close the wealth gap, and also on an individual level?
So I think the important thing is truly understanding how you're spending your money and operating in the amount of money that you have now, not what you want to have or what you used to have. So I think it's really important to understand how you're spending, to limit, credit card debt because that is brutal. Have enough of a savings account that will get you through any kind of, stormy months. And then really starting to observe and look at creating income streams. So that's really no one that is truly wealthy got there by saving their way there. I think you would agree with that. You're putting money in your savings account, that's not going to do anything for you. I think that we need to get really good at understanding how money can work for us out of our bank accounts. What does that mean? That means looking at investment accounts, looking at real estate as an option. If you don't want to be in real estate, looking at a syndication. So, for somebody that's listening that thinks, I would love to get into the real estate space, I don't have enough money to do that on my own yet. They could look at something like a syndication where a lot of times that's a $25,000 entry and you get to be involved in real estate without having to come up with this huge down payment. And the more that you can get involved with those things, have your money producing income coming back to you, you can then snowball that and start something second. So I think it's really important for people to understand your money has to work for you if you ever want to close that gap. Because unfortunately, it's just the way of the world. It takes money to make money. And you have to kind of start somewhere. And I know with a lot of people, they hear, high yield savings accounts and a Roth IRA, and those are all lovely tools. But when you're really talking about growing true wealth and shrinking that gap, you have to think a little bit bigger and have a goal for yourself to actually have your money not be your lazy asset.
No, Michelle, I couldn't agree more. And I would also want to add, like on a national level and also like on individual levels, like a lot of people rack up credit card debt because they want to keep it up with the Jones. But when you combine credit card debt with inflation, that's like a disaster in the making,
Brutal.
especially it's like how do you get out of that in the short term or long term? Because now you have to go to work because you gotta and there's like interest on those credit cards and they're like 20%, 30%. So it's kind of like we like the middle class and like the gap is getting wider and wider because the elite and the top people know how to do business. They understand how money works, whereas the rest are not knowing how the game is played, you know?
Yeah, and I think social media has played a big part in that because we see everybody's lives and we're all the main character in our own story. So when you see people doing things that you want to do, I hate to say it, but oftentimes people are spending money that they don't have to go on that vacation because they know somebody who did it when they have no business doing it. So I think prioritizing, I've seen this said by a few famous, noteworthy people, but you have to be willing to sacrifice today to live the rest of your life differently than your peers will. And that's so true. If you really are disciplined and focused on, okay, I'm going to pay off my credit card debt. I'm going to be intentional with my spending, and I'm going to have those goals that I'm chasing. Once you get in the habit and the cadence of doing that, it is the best feeling in the world, and you'll never turn back. But it's important that you start.
Like Michelle, I think that what we're talking about right now is like very similar to an addiction, but for like what we talked about in social media. Because yes, you see your friends and everybody else living the life. They're showing the best pictures. They're not showing you their actual lives, but the pictures when they're going to vacations and all, and you compare your worst moments or your average moments with their best parts of their life on social media, and then you want to rack up, like you end up racking debt to go to those vacations to have a comparison, and then it's just like a downward spiral, and this is happening on a not just a national level, on a global level actually.
It's absolutely a big problem. And especially for the youth that are coming up through it, it's just, you don't realize that. And especially because so much of what we see is like paid partnerships, and there's so much that's not real to that space. So it's just critical, I think, to have your own goal, set it, remind yourself of it every day. And, another very famous quote, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Let's worry about building your wealth, how whatever that looks like, one step at a time, so that you can be the architect of the life that you've always wanted. And that comes down to money conversations, spending less than you should, spending less than you can, being intentional, and putting your money to work for you.
So, Michelle, as a continuation of this, like let's say somebody's watching this and they want to know how to achieve the American dream after they made the mistake of like looking at the social media, racking up credit card debt to pay for the vacations, and then doing the living up with the Jones thing, and like now they want to make a change, and they come to you for advice. How would you go about advising them to achieve the American dream?
The first thing I would say is get crystal clear around your goals. What is the American dream to that person? And then let's reverse engineer how we get there. Then you have the plan. After the plan, in my opinion, we have to tackle credit card debt first. Now, I also don't believe in an or lifestyle. I believe in an and. The reason I say that is I'll have people say to me all the time, I want to aggressively pay off these credit card debts. I don't worry about savings. That doesn't always help when an emergency comes up. You don't have a savings to pay for it. So then you're going back to your credit cards. So I think it's really important to, feed both of those beasts, if you will. I think for credit cards, breaking everything down by what your balance is, what your minimum payment is, and what the interest rate is. And then coming up with a plan on snowballing those payments so that you're making progress. I think that's so important for people to feel the progress. And then once your debts are paid off, the world opens up. Now we can get back to being a little more aggressive in putting money into a savings account that will help you accomplish what that goal is down the road. And and then it's just up to you putting your money to work for you. But credit card debt is brutal. I've been there. I remember being in college, making terrible money decisions, waking up in the middle of the night, panicked because I didn't know what I was going to do. And it's a valuable lesson if you can change your ways because it does prevent you from ever falling back in that lifestyle. But I also think that people need to understand that building wealth, the best way to do that is through debt. Use someone else's money to go out and build something incredible. Credit card debts are not tied to an asset. So you want to find debts that are tied to assets and shift your focus. But credit card debts, we definitely want to start there and wipe those out.
Michelle, it's interesting because I talked with a few other successful entrepreneurs on this podcast, and then they talked about something called strategic debt, for acquiring assets versus negative debt, which is like credit card debt or things that just you're like consumer debt, in which you're just using it to get liabilities or just like get an iPhone or whatever. And strategic debt is how you truly become wealthy, where you
Yeah.
utilize debt or other people's money to basically get assets which increase in value over time. You know?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We talk a lot to our clients about positive arbitrage. So if you can borrow money from somebody at 4%, but then take that money and go make 10%, you're winning. So it's all about identifying an opportunity and then figuring out how to leverage either a loan or a home equity line. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do it. You can use it through different types of life insurances. I mean, there's a million ways to leverage assets. You can even have a line of credit against your investment account so that your money is really, you're spending a dollar one time, but it's making money for you in multiple places. That is the quickest magic bullet to building wealth.
So, Michelle, just for the sake of the audience, so that they can get a better understanding of this term, from your perspective, how would you define what arbitrage is, and what is a practical way of using arbitrage in somebody's life in order to like start making wealth?
So let's just use the example I briefly just touched on. Let's say that you have an opportunity to buy an Airbnb. And if you are able to borrow money, and let's say the rate is 4%, you still have that expense of 4%, but you're going to take the money that you're borrowing and you're going to invest it in this asset. Let's say this time it's an Airbnb. And if your returns on that investment are, let's say, 10%, you're still creating what we call positive arbitrage because the $1 you spent over here is allowing you to spend a dollar somewhere else. So you're actually making money in two spots, but only paying that 4% interest. So it's just a way to constantly keep the flow kind of going in the triangle. Same thing with real estate. If you have a home that you have a ton of equity in, if you take a HELOC out to buy another piece of real estate, the loan that you have through the HELOC is tied to an asset. So it's a healthy debt. It's not using someone else's money at this point. Technically, it's tied to your home. But if you're taking that to invest in another real estate holding that's now going to create positive cash flow, you are winning the game. That's positive arbitrage.
That is amazing, Michelle, and I'm glad that you're talking about it on the show because, like, we are not taught this in school or in college or in university. Like, this is real financial education that people need to know in order to close the wealth gap. Because right now, there's the top 1% that know how this is done, and then there's the rest, like, where they're working the 9 to 5 job and racked up in credit card debt, mortgage payments, car payments, and all that stuff. And this is the knowledge that we need to know in order to like get out, you know?
Yeah, and I do think, so many people think, oh, I'm not ready to speak to somebody that's in the wealth management space. The reality is, there are wealth managers out there for everybody at any stage that they're in their careers or in their wealth building. So I would challenge any of your listeners to find somebody that they know, like, and trust to help guide them to make the best decisions, even if they're in their first jobs out of college or they're going back into the workforce, anything like that. There's never a reason to not work with a financial advisor or a wealth manager to help guide you and hold you accountable and make the good decisions.
Totally. And Michelle, the conversation that we talked about regarding social media and its effect and its keeping up on the Jones attitude, like this is something that is not talked about on a political level at all. Like the real discussion on how to close the wealth gap comes on in understanding the psychology of our times and the societal and cultural norms. And this is actually the reason why people are so much in debt because they compare themselves to the best version of other people's lives and they don't realize that a lot of it is just an illusion and a facade, you know?
Yeah, it's fluff. It's totally fluff. And that's where if you turn down the noise of what's happening and just focus on your big vision and have crystal clear expectations. Don't let anything stop you or pull you off course. The small things that you're seeing on social media will suddenly become non-existent because you are so focused on what the end result is, whether it's buying your first house, buying a business, growing and scaling your business, exiting a business. You're not going to let small things that you see somewhere else deter you. But you've got to have that crystal clear vision of what it is for yourself because that's where you get true buy-in.
No, totally, Michelle. And Michelle, I wanted to ask about, I know you are the founder of the Women in Wealth Initiative. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about that and how you got it started and what it's about?
I would love to. So I started working with my very good friend and was just focused on wealth management. We predominantly work with business owners, and because I'm a woman, I was just working mostly with women. And what I was finding is even women that you and I would deem as very successful still were having these kind of conversations where I have $300,000 in cash because I don't know what to do with it. I'm maxing out my retirement accounts. What's next? I had business owners that don't have a P&L. So I saw a real opportunity, and that's when Women in Wealth was founded. And what it is, the primary mission of Women in Wealth is to change the way women think and feel about money. So it is a membership platform that you can join and have access to all sorts of information, a library full of quick videos that explain topics and give you PDFs and templates on how to do this on your own. And then you also have the community aspect of it where you're in this group where there's a lot of other women that are on varying phases of what their wealth journey looks like. So whether you're just starting out or you are making seven figures, there's going to be somebody in the community that is in the same stage of life. There's so that's Women in Wealth in a nutshell, is truly a place where women can go and be surrounded by like-minded women. And we're having the conversations, we're encouraging the raising of hands, and hopefully changing the landscape one female at a time of what true financial freedom and success looks like.
That is amazing, Michelle, and I would definitely recommend any of my female listeners to listening to this to definitely check this out because I do want everybody to attain financial freedom, like no matter where it comes from, you know. And Michelle, are there any other projects that you're working on that you would want the audience to get a glimpse into?
Yeah, so I have a podcast as well called Talk Wealthy to Me. And the whole premise of that is really defining what success looks like. And I think that that's another thing that's so important. Again, going back to your point about social media, is success isn't always going to be flying in a private plane all over the world with your friends like Sarah Blakely does. And a lot of women see those kind of goals and think, if I don't have that level of success, am I really hustling hard enough? And I'm wanting to change the narrative on that. I think success can look different for all of us. And it's all about making sure that women have the resources to go after that version of success and then evolve as you achieve it. But the Talk Wealthy to Me podcast, of course, I'd love to have any of your listeners tune in and listen and give me other topics that they'd like to hear about. And then womeninwealth.co.
That is awesome, Michelle. And Michelle, how can the audience connect with you and get to know more about you and your work? And if they wanted financial advice, how should they go about reaching you?
They can reach me on the website, womeninwealth.co, or on Instagram, women_in_wealth, and send me a message, and I'd be happy to talk to anyone out there.
That is amazing, Michelle. And Michelle, I'm so grateful that you took the time to come to this show and then, share your wisdom, especially about arbitrage and the current predicament about keeping up with the Jones and social media, because this is the conversation and dialogue we need to have on a national level if we want to have any true change. And I do hope that you come back on this podcast at a later time.
I would love to come back, and I had so much fun talking to you today. Thanks for having me.
Likewise. And I want to conclude this episode by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, hey, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us. It's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now. Hey, everyone. Thank you for watching Extraordinary America. If you like what you see, please do subscribe to our podcast and share it with others. Remember that the best investment that you can make in your lifetime is in your own financial education, for it is knowledge that truly sets us free. Also, remember that inflation is diluting your purchasing power, which in turn increases financial bondage. The practical thing to do is to protect the loss of your purchasing power and invest in precious metals or the right cryptocurrencies. Lastly, never forget that you are an extraordinary American. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.